Despite its early wins, Imperial Japan's fanaticism and brutality could not carry it through to victory in the war. Poor decision-making and infighting plagued the Japanese military. Where other armies would have cut their losses and retreated, living to fight another day, the Japanese army pressed on, throwing logic by the wayside. Lacking supplies and medicine, the Japanese, more than once, stretched themselves too thin and crumbled as a result. Instead of surrendering, they often fought to the death, rushing their enemies in reckless banzai attacks. And if they couldn't do that, there was always suicide. The China-Burma-India theatre was one of the most atrocious theatres of the Second World War, due in no part to Japanese savagery. This theatre was also the site of one of Japan's biggest undoings. In this video, we delve into the Japanese blunder that was the Yugo offensive, focusing on the battles of Imphal and Kohima. At the onset of World War II, Burma was part of the British Empire, because what wasn't? In December 1941, the Japanese 15th Army, led by Lieutenant General Shojiro Lida, advanced through friendly Thailand on Burma's port capital, Rangoon. They bombed the hell out of the city, then marched in, driving out the surviving forces of Britain, British India, and British Burma by early March the following year. After Rangoon's fall, the forces of the British Empire teamed up with the Chinese in central Burma to staunch Japan's spread through Burma. Long story short, it didn't work, and the Allies limped to relative safety in neighbouring India and China. The forces of the British Empire mostly took refuge in the Indian state of Manipur, notably the city of Imphal. From then until March 1944, the Japanese set up shop in Burma, seizing control of the country and working alongside the collaborationist Burma Independence Army. As for the British, once they were done licking their wounds, they tested Japanese resolve with an offense on Burma's Arakan province. It was a disaster, with the British taking heavy casualties. They also tried a less direct approach, creating British and Indian Spec Ops units known as the Long Range Penetration Groups, or Chindits. These units went deep behind enemy lines to engage the Japanese using guerrilla tactics. While the Chindits saw some success, Burma's jungle wore them down and ate them alive. Of the 9,000 to 12,000 Chindits to serve in Burma, 1,400 were killed and over 2,400 were wounded. A great many of them spent time hospitalized as well, suffering from disease and malnutrition. Meanwhile, the US was improving transportation and communication a little further into India than Imphal, namely in the state of Assam. Among their larger projects, they flew supplies from American air bases in Assam to American air bases in China over the Himalayan mountains. They were also busy constructing the Ledo Road, another vital link between India and China. Both of these efforts would help America and China fight the Japanese in Burma. So naturally, the Japanese weren't too chuffed about it. In March 1943, a bloke named Renya Motoguchi took charge of the Japanese 15th Army, while the rest of Japan's forces in Burma fell under the Burma Area Army. As for Motoguchi, he dreamt of invading Assam every night and woke up with a rager every morning, so he came up with a foolproof plan. Basically, he would take the 15th Army and thrust it into India. The bulk of his army would penetrate Imphal, while the 31st Infantry Division, under Lieutenant General Kotoku Sato, would gank Kohima to Imphal's north, severing the Allied supply line. Regarding the 15th Army's own supplies, that wouldn't be a problem. Motoguchi's men could sustain themselves on the thrill of battle alone. Motoguchi agreed with himself in the mirror that it was a great plan indeed. The greatest. It didn't matter that his divisional commanders thought otherwise. Other than his reflection, Gucci also boasted the support of Subhas C. Bose and Bose's collaborationist Indian National Army in turn. Now, all that Gucci needed was a name. Operation Yugo would do. Defending the Indian cities was the British 14th Army, a British and British Indian unit under the command of Lieutenant General William Slim, who had spent a lot of time and money preparing his men for war, and whose game plan was to withdraw to the Imphal plain and stretch the Japanese supply lines thin as pasta. Giorgi crossed the Chinwin River on the 8th of March 1944, several days before the British had expected. This resulted in a bit of a messy withdrawal, with the predominantly Indian divisions making a fighting withdrawal to the Imphal plain, inflicting heavy casualties on the Japanese, but suffering a great many in turn. At one point, the city of Imphal was left all but completely open to the Japanese 15th Division. Unfortunately for Giorgi, who really could have used the win, Slim was able to fly 2 brigades of the 5th Indian Infantry Division, jeeps and all, into Imphal and save the day. With the city denied, Giorgi lost what momentum he'd built. From April, he was forced to make ineffectual attacks against the 14th Army on the Imphal plain. Meanwhile, Kotoku Sato's 31st Infantry Division had reached Kohima, coming up against the Assam Regiment and some of the platoons of the Assam Rifles. Despite being outnumbered, the regiment fought a successful rearguard action from the 1st of April to the 4th, when 2 battalions of the Indian 161st Brigade arrived in Kohima, where some Chindit and Nepalese Gurkha units had also gathered. Much of the fighting took place on Kohima Ridge, and certainly the bloodiest occurred over control of British Deputy Commissioner Charles Pawsey's bungalow and tennis court. In fact, the battle for the World War I-esque no man's land that was the tennis court devolved into a savage melee, punctuated with sniper bullets and bayonet attacks. According to Major Boschel of the British 6th Brigade, which relieved the 161st, the land made impossible to move by day because of Japanese snipers. We were in Kohima for 3 weeks. We were attacked every single night. They came in waves. It was like a pigeon shoot. Also brought in to relieve Kohima's initial defenders was the British 5th Brigade, a unit of the same division as the 6th. Bolstered by these units, the British fought tooth and nail to remove the Japanese from Kohima Ridge and then the villages surrounding Kohima. One of such villages was Nagar village. By mid-May, Sato's supply lines were non-existent and his men were starving. They tried to forage as much as they could from the surrounding hills, but it wasn't enough. To top it off, the warehouse full of rice they had hoped to seize had earlier been bombed and consequentially obliterated. To top it off again, Giorgi now wanted Sato to drag the remnants of his sorry division to Imphal, where things were going equally as terrible for the Gooch. Sato's men, starving, sick and wounded, dropped off the perch as they moved south, while the British Indian 33rd Corps, which had come to relieve the British at Kohima, gave the Japanese division a not-so-gentle nudge from behind, simultaneously advancing on Imphal. Beginning in May, Imphal's defenders began a counter-offensive against the Japanese, who were exhausted from attacking over the Imphal plain and whose supplies were wearing thin, just as Slim had expected. The 33rd Corps hit the Japanese from the north, while south of Imphal, the 17th Indian Division broke apart the Japanese 33rd Division throughout May and June. On the 3rd of July, the Gooch took another good hard look at himself in the mirror and decided it was over, ordering the dregs of his army to withdraw. All in all, the Japanese 15th Army suffered some 55,000 to 60,000 casualties in Big G's Yugo offensive, including over 13,000 deaths, mostly due to starvation, exhaustion, and disease. The 12,000 pack horses and mules and 30,000 cattle the Gooch had sent into the fray were all but extinct, destroyed by the British or devoured by the Japanese. The Gooch sacked all of his divisional commanders before he got sacked himself, and the tide had well and truly turned in the favour of the Allies in the Burma campaign and the China-Burma-India theatre overall. So, had you heard of the simultaneous battles of Imphal and Kohima? What about our buddy Rinya Mutaguchi? What do you think would have happened if the Japanese had taken Imphal and Kohima and moved on Assam? Let us know your thoughts and more in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope you learned something new.